think I'll call the meeting to order, although we do not have a quorum at this time. We will then continue to the agenda and hopefully, how many do we have? 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, we do. I'm sorry. Well, we'll start. John, do you feel like you're lonesome over there? Aren't you with Susan?
I'll speak first.
Okay. So let's have roll call, please, starting with you, Dr. Joel, please.
Joel McCullough, Spokane Regional Health District.
Susan Norwood, appointed member.
John Snyder, City of Spokane.
And Snowball, Recording Secretary.
Michelle Fossum, Legal Counsel.
Bob Lutz, appointed member.
Pete Baldwin, appointed member.
Chuck Hapner, City of Spokane Valley.
Amber Waldrop, City of Spokane.
And Mike Fagan, City of Spokane.
Okay. And thank all of you for being here on this nice warm day. And my understanding is it's not going to get any cooler tomorrow or the next day, so I appreciate you very much for being here. Citizen input at this time, and Carolyn, I think I'll start with you.
I'm number 13.
No, I changed that. I want you to be first today.
Okay.
Do you need some help to get up to the podium?
Well, I'm walking.
Okay.
And I'm going to walk just the way I have to get there. It may take a while, so that's why I want to be number 13. You can have and Rose talk first.
Good afternoon. Hope you're all doing well. I just found out how old I was the other day. I don't remember even now. I don't want to. This is all given respectfully and in good faith. And I just found out I'm a snail mail. I use snail mail to get my bulletin, and I get mine before she gets hers, and she's going to have to go to her regular communication now because I get mine in the mail. They don't only deliver 3 or 4 times a week, but I get my mail. And I just found out from my dear friend, Mr. Fagan, that it's what I wanted to talk about today was solar radiation, whatever. And it was from geoengineeringwatch.org. And there's another one in there on the communication that is telling it very little about what it really is and what we see. And some of us are really stupid yet. We call it chemtrails because I sit and watch the planes fly over and all this dump in the air. And then at night it looks like it's gray, cloudy when it was beautiful all day. That I'm really concerned about, and I understand that some of the pilots are very upset and have got a lawsuit about the noxious stuff that they have to work with and that they're dumping in the air. And then I've looked up the board of Monsanto because of GMO foods. And what was really funny is I hope Daniel stop for me if I'm in a real bad hurry, and we stop at McDonald's. I use the back door, go to the restroom, and then come out and catch the car home or wherever we're going. I don't eat their hamburgers, and I found out that the Monsanto lady, what if she is now a board member of Monsanto? She was McDonald's. And I'm saying what if in front of everything because I can't remember the whole sentences that I'm supposed to use anymore. I just throw it out there and let you figure it out on your computers. The airplane people, the pilots have a lawsuit going, and I think we should be checking to see what it's about. The board of Monsanto's is the one that's the head of GMO foods, and to tell you a nice place that you may want to take your favorite person is the sagebrush. I just happen to have a piece of paper in my pocketbook that tells what sagebrush is really noxious to you. But the place down on 2nd and is called the Sagebrush, and they make the best fish dinner for you. And it's all genetically unmodified, and they do cook with canola oil, and that is very dangerous. So tell them you don't want it cooked in canola oil, and they will do it for you. And they had several prizes for their company. And
Thanks, Carolyn.
there's one other thing I want to say.
One sentence? No ordeal. Thank you.
Respectfully submitted in good faith. I have more to tell you, but I'm going to let you figure it out for yourselves.
Okay, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please note that Mr. Pace from Spokane Valley is now here in attendance, and Shelley O'Quinn, the Spokane County Commissioners, are here. Also, I would like to then start with you, Tony, and introduce the people sitting over there observing us. Please give us your name, please, and what you do.
Elaine Conley, Mission Director for CFS. Linda Graham, Health Policy Communications Manager. Paul O'Brien, Program Manager for the Intel Network and ABCD Program. Julie Albury, Living Environment Special Projects Program Manager.
Keith, starting over here.
All right, Kyle Inlet, Division Director, Health Promotions.
Foster, Children and Family Services,
Sir? You do have a name?
I'm not a dignitary.
No, I didn't. We are, none of us are. That's why you're in attendance, if you, please.
Ron Anderson, concerned citizen.
Thank you.
Rosemary Wolf Morrison, citizen. Medically, double blind tested with fluoride.
Okay.
I'm Mike Riley, Comptroller of the Health District.
Kim Craig, Marshall County Manager. Debbie Markle, Public Health Nurse.
Okay. Now, our second citizen report. Rosemary, please.
Oh, my. In front of you, if you'll take a look, and anyone in the audience, if you'd like a copy, I can supply you afterward. This is a copy of a billboard that I'm now supporting. Above anyway, regarding this billboard, which is an amicus attempt to inform the allergy-prone individual a common denominator may be the fluoride compounds in and or used to create drug medications, which include vaccines and GMO frankenfoods, as well as the fluorides used in public water fluoridation. My billboards have been circulating throughout Spokane and Spokane County since June. Well, no, this billboard has, but since October 2000, my other billboards have circulated throughout Spokane and Spokane County. Now, if the statement on the latest billboard is not true, why is it continued to be allowed public exposure? And if these statements are false, why is the source, which is me, not disciplined for what may be a criminal intent to harm? If the above statements are true, I'm referring to what's on the other side, but your personal view of fluoridation is based on bureaucratic assurances and or vested special interest lobbying, or the fact you're not personally conducting a 40-year investigation the way I have, then why shouldn't civil and or criminal charges be brought against you? Now, I'm going to skip the rest of it, and I'm going to trust that you're smart enough to read it yourselves. What if the person witnessing before you today is a former resident of the non-fluoridated control city in that New York State Health Department study of fluoridation, which covered Newburgh, New York, and most or all of the information provided this board over the past 18 years is a result of that, as well as my own personal experience in investigation, which began in 1971. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, at this time, chair report. I have very little to say other than I again want to commend the health district staff for all the information they're getting out to the populace regarding this heat wave we're having. I think the information has been very, very good, so again, I appreciate that. It seems that almost every month there's some type of a crisis, and we seem to be able to at least discuss that and get it out where it's necessary. So again, my thanks to them. At this time, the health officer report, please. You have 3 minutes. I thought maybe I just mentioned it. No, you have more time than that, Dr. Joel.
The mouse isn't working, so let's use the touchpad.
That's really nice looking. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. Summary.
Good. Good afternoon. Today my report will include information about a grant that's coming to Washington State, to the Department of Health and Sacred Heart Medical Center. I'll be updating you where we stand with Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, update you on some changes in the Ebola monitoring that we're having, and a quick discussion about pertussis. In terms of the first item, earlier this month it was announced that the Washington State Department of Health, along with its partner hospital, Sacred Heart Medical Center and Children's Hospital, was awarded a federal grant to become the regional Ebola special pathogens hospital, and that will be for Region 10, which includes Washington State, Idaho, Oregon, and Alaska. So this is a part of a federal effort to enhance the nation's response capability for infectious diseases. So this will be a 5-year grant coming predominantly to Sacred Heart Medical Center, and the grant will be for between $3.2 million and $4.6 million. So it will be in that range. So also looking at some of the other hospitals that received this grant, it's among a very impressive group of hospitals. So other hospitals that were part of this process includes Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and other very impressive hospitals. So this is a great tribute to our partners at Sacred Heart for being able to be competitive and receive this grant. So the next topic is Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. First, what is about MERS, which is the short name for this. MERS is a viral respiratory illness that's relatively new to humans. It was first reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012, and it has spread to several other countries, including the U.S. There was 2 cases of MERS reported in the U.S. Last year. But most of the infections from this virus occurs in the Arabian Peninsula and countries around that area. So in terms of the symptoms, most people develop the respiratory symptoms, respiratory illness, which includes fever, cough, and shortness of breath, and it has a relatively high mortality rate. So what's new with MERS is that there is now a large outbreak occurring in South Korea, and this is the largest outbreak that has occurred outside of the Arabian Peninsula. So their case count is about 175. And we've also seen that the MERS is spreading from South Korea to other countries in Asia as well. And this outbreak is still under investigation and is being monitored by CDC. So what we've done here locally, we've sent out a health advisory to our local providers to make them aware of that there's an additional criteria that they need to consider when they're evaluating people that have these these symptoms, and specifically the additional criteria is to take a travel history from that includes South Korea. Previously, it was only travel through the Arabian Peninsula in that area. And also, we let people know the providers know what the symptoms are, and that they would need to contact us, the public health district, if there's concern that an individual may be suspicious of MERS. So,
does that include the international airport? Is the health district talking to them right now?
well, we send our alerts to the providers, and CDC generally deals with the airports throughout the country. So it's CDC sends out. We receive the alert from CDC, and CDC sends the alerts to the airports.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Any other
questions related to MERS?
Keith?
Dr. McCullough, how does this spread from one individual to another? And did it start with individuals, or was it an animal-borne disease to start with?
So MERS is spread by the respiratory routes, so sneezing, coughing, and you can also pick it up on surfaces. So it's spread like most other respiratory viruses. And and your other part of your question was?
Did it start with people or animals?
Well, it was first discovered in people in 2012.
Okay.
And most or many diseases, infectious diseases in human have an animal origin. And so, does that help?
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Okay. So quickly about Ebola monitoring. I've reported before about the Ebola outbreak that's going on in West Africa. There has been some success as it relates to one country, specifically Liberia. There have been decreased. Liberia has been declared Ebola-free back in May, and earlier this month it was advised by CDC that we stop actively monitoring those travelers that are returning from Liberia. So we are not monitoring travelers returning from Liberia unless they've been in Sierra Leone or Guinea, the other two countries that are affected. So that's a change in our Ebola monitoring situation here. And the last topic relates to pertussis. The executive committee wanted me to mention the pertussis outbreak that's going on in Clark County. Apparently in Clark County there have been close to 200 cases of pertussis this year. And at the same period last year there have been 16 cases, so a significant increase. And most of the cases have been in the age group from 10 years old to 18 years old. And they're also reporting about 75% of those cases were up to date with their pertussis vaccine. So an indication of waning immunity as it relates to the pertussis vaccine. So the Clark County Health Department's been working with their providers to make sure that they have a high suspicion for pertussis, if they have the symptoms consistent with pertussis, and let them know what the proper treatment and what the recommended prophylaxis would be as well. As it relates to Spokane County, we have about 27 cases of pertussis this year, which is about normal. That we see about that normal number of cases here in Spokane. So we're not seeing the similar type of situation here in Spokane County. Finally, wasn't on my slide, but Chair Hafner mentioned the heat wave that's coming, and just want to let the board know that, as was mentioned, that we've done a lot of work to alert the public to the dangers of extreme heat. And one of the things that we've done is we produce a joint news release with some of our key partners, including Hoop Fest and Ironman, to make sure that everyone knows what precautions to take to prevent any heat-related illnesses. And we've also done media interviews, and we've produced some documents like this heat stress document to let people know what the signs and symptoms of heat-related illnesses are and what they should do to prevent it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Joel? Doctor?
Yeah, Dr. McCauley, I just want to commend you. Last week I saw a gentleman in follow-up for pertussis, and as a reportable illness, he had been contacted by the health department. What was interesting is that the health department appropriately advised his wife to take medications prophylactically, whereas the nurse that she contacted at the clinic at an off-site site told her not to take the medications, which was, again, so I really appreciate the word that the health department's getting out there. And in this specific individual, he had been immunized as a child. So he was an adult, 40-plus years old, but had come in with a very bad cough and was appropriately diagnosed with pertussis. And again, in referencing the information that the health department had sent out, he was appropriately diagnosed and treated. So thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mike?
Doctor, as you well know, legislature's still at an impasse, which means, not only are we talking about state employee layoffs, but I've been getting calls over the last couple of days from folks that have gotten letters from the likes of DSHS letting them know that we're coming up to the end of the biennium. The current biennium, money's going to run out, and these folks are out now scrambling around for daycare services, et cetera. I would imagine that others that rely on the social safety net are probably going to get put into the same position. And there is talk out there amongst peers that we could be entering into a third session. So, that being stated, is there anything that the health district is doing right now to brace for an impact when all of a sudden we see funding from DSHS or any other revenue streams dry up as a result?
So you're asking if SRHD will making any adjustments if there is a government shutdown by the state in terms of the social service needs that may result?
That is correct. Is the health district preparing for that at this point? And if so, what is it that is happening so that we as elected officials might be able to communicate with our constituents when we are confronted with this issue?
Well, certainly we're used to responding to crises in general. So if there would be a crisis that results from a government shutdown, certainly we will respond. In terms of specific preparations for the specific government shutdown, we haven't made any. We haven't had meetings to say we're going to do this in case of that. But certainly we generally work with our partners and response partners to ensure that if there would be a crisis, we will jump in and help where we can.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Dr. Joel.
Sure.
Okay, Linda Graham, and legislative report, please.
All right, good afternoon. As Mike referenced, we're near the end of the second session. There has been some movement on budget issues, as I'm sure you're all aware, but at this point we're pretty short on details as to what's going to come out with public health funding and some of our major initiatives. The one update I do have is that this afternoon, House Bill 2211, which is the taxation measure on electronic cigarettes and related devices, that is going into executive session in a committee in the House this afternoon. So hopefully they'll have some action on that. That's a good sign. But no other movement that we're seeing on any of our other priorities. So, any questions?
Linda, in case the legislature should all of a sudden close and meet, would you be able to give us a summary of how it has affected us prior to our next board meeting?
Yeah, I'm sure if we don't have a budget, certainly by the end of the legislative session, or if we do, we'll get information out about where things stand, both in terms of our legislative priorities on policy and budget, as well as I'm sure there'll be some communications about impacts on the health district specifically.
Okay.
So.
Any questions, please? Kev? Keith?
Just one. You know, it might be helpful to shoot us a website or a contact or something where we can go in and look what state programs will continue, which ones will. I know WIC will continue even if there is no budget. Is that not right, John? Or maybe somebody else knows.
They sent out a news release yesterday.
Yeah, so there are a number of programs that won't be disrupted, and then there are, so it is confusing. I would have to agree with Mike on that, and probably a lot of people are confused. But if we just had a place we could go and look and see what's up or down or whatever, that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
and we could respond to people if they asked.
Yeah, I can certainly get you stuff at a state level.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, once we know where things stand here, we'll be getting information out.
That's great.
Any other questions?
And I also think that even the question that Mike had risen is that if something should happen, are we prepared to be able to say, well, we're going to have this program, and I think that's kind of what Mike was getting at.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. As opposed to being a reactionary body, I was hoping that we would be a little bit more proactive in this, because again, I am already getting the telephone calls from constituents who don't know what they're going to do. I mean, they're out there trying to do the responsible thing, hanging on to their job, but if they end up losing some of the subsidies that is allowing them to work.
Okay. And I'm sure that the staff is looking at that very seriously.
Yeah, and there was actually
at
a
this time.
communication that went out today. I don't know, Torney, if you might want to mention the emails, the email that you sent out today. Would that be helpful?
As an agency, we are preparing to sustain all of our activities until at least the legislature would go a week or two. We are okay to sustain that. As you identified, WIC will not be impacted, nor will ESIT, the EIP program, Early Intervention Program. Those will both be sustained. They're exempt. The other programs that we have will not be impacted short term. We will see what the legislature does and adjust our budgets down the road to compensate for whatever happens. We've been told in some programs that there will be reimbursement, and in others we've been told there won't. The last time this happened, the legislature did reimburse. So we did not want to create a lot of anxiety with all of our employees by sending out notices ahead of time without having any real understanding where the legislature would go.
John?
Just to address Mr. Fagan's comments, you as an elected official have a significant amount of influence over legislators because you represent some 211,000 people in the district that you, the jurisdiction that you represent. I would suggest that if we're concerned about a government shutdown, we contact our legislators and tell them how we don't want it to happen. I mean, there are proposals on the table right now, including ones that would get rid of some ineffective and long-standing tax breaks in order to avert the shutdown. And if you support that proposal or if you support some other alternative, now's the time to contact your legislators and let them know that a shutdown is unacceptable.
Okay. Thank you, John. Any other remarks? Okay, thank you, Linda. Let's go to the consent agenda. There are two items, the minute meetings from May the 28th of 2015 and also voucher from May the 1st to 31st. Any items you'd like to withdraw from that consent agenda to speak to? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as provided?
So move.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? Okay, thank you very much. Action items. There seem to be no action items today. So let's continue to report. So David told me that he was at his best today in speaking to all of us. We haven't seen him speak for quite a while, so he's very well prepared to discuss the environment, public health, and responsibility organization.
Usually when I speak, it's all controversial stuff, and so I'm going to mix it up a little bit today. If I can Dr. McCullough moved my slide, so. You're off the hook. Good afternoon. I am David Smink. I'm the director of the Environmental Public Health Division. And I want you to note the band along the top of this slide. That's pictures of my staff at work. And I think it's real interesting if you take a closer look at those. They should be on the PowerPoint copy that's in your packet that was sent to you. And I wanted to say that because staff are the most important part of the division, and we could accomplish nothing if it wasn't for the staff that we have working in environmental public health. I also like to thank Kim Papich for putting this band together. She took some photos I sent down and made that nice little banner up there for the presentation. I tried to keep this presentation entertaining as well as informative, so I've mixed it up a little bit. So feel free, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to ask them. Assessment, policy development, and assurance are the three core functions of public health. I'm sure you've seen this. They've been around since the late 80s. So they're really written in stone almost. From those, the 10 essential services were developed, and that's the basis for the public health standards and just about everything else we do. So this little simple premise here, a lot has grown out of it. The part that we deal with mostly is assurance. It's our job to prevent problems rather than to respond to problems after they occur. So we assure the public's health is protected. As I stated before, nothing could be done without the staff that's in environmental public health. I'm very proud of the staff that we have up there. And I've made it a point to sit in on interviews to assure that we do hire the very best staff that's available. I had some numbers in your slides if you bothered to look at them, but I did take the answers out on the slides that were provided to you because I wanted to give a little bit of a surprise on some things. So the first number was 9. You can guess if you want to, but that's the number of programs that we have in environmental public health. We have 9 programs, plus we have program support, which is essentially the division's indirects. These are those programs that we have. They're pretty photogenic. I don't think they really like getting their pictures taken. Next number. This is actually the number of staff that we have in environmental public health. We actually have more programs and less staff than when I started 22 plus years ago. So we're doing more with less than we did when I came on board 22 plus years ago. This one I found really interesting. Higher number. It's the years of experience in environmental public health, and that includes not only experience here, but if they worked in environmental public health elsewhere. For example, before I came here, I worked 15 years for the State Health Department in Missouri. Well, that's environmental public health, so it's counted in there. It's experience. It ranges from new staff that have come on board within the last 5 months or so to us old-timers who have 38 years and 3 months. Not that I'm counting. The interesting thing about this is, amazingly, we average 16 years of experience. in environmental public health. That's a lot of people staying around for a good little while. We have a lot of experience. Now this looks blank, but this is really my favorite part of the presentation. We asked staff for examples of what they did that fell under a few key words. Those words were, if I can find them here, educate, train, partner, collaborate, participate, or respond. Notice enforce was not in there. We asked them to look at the other things that we do. So thank you to Naji for putting together this little video that I'm going to show you, if I can get it started. And just enjoy it. It's short.
The Environmental Resources Program participates in collaborative community efforts aimed at educating the public about protecting and improving the water quality in the aquifer in the Spokane River. Program staff worked for over a year on a committee from Idaho and Washington to produce the Spokane Valley Rafter and Prairie Aquifer Atlas 2015 edition that includes brand new pollution prevention information.
Spokane Regional Health District's Food Safety Program participates in seminars to provide general food safety education, such as permitting requirements and food safety practices. These organizations include Eastern Washington University's fraternities and sororities, Spokane Nonprofit Fundraising 101, and various community organizations and student groups. The Food Safety Program coordinates with community event and farmers market organizers to educate them on application processing and safe food handling practices. This collaboration between the Food Safety Program and coordinators helps provide safe food service for a successful event.
Each year, the Water Recreation Program works with World Relief and Spokane County Marine Enforcement Unit. We provide water safety education to our community's refugees and their families.
For the past few summers, the Zoonotic Disease Program has partnered with all local veterinarians to collect and submit ticks to the Washington State Department of Health. This is part of the state's tick surveillance efforts.
The Food Safety Program works with organizations such as Feed Spokane, a food rescue organization, and other food banks to promote donation and salvage of safe food. This helps to provide safe food to the needy and reduce food waste at our solid waste facilities.
The Environmental Resources Program provides education and outreach specific to the Spokane River. Environmental Resources is a participant to the Spokane River Regional Toxics Task Force, working to reduce PCBs in the Spokane River and the river's fish.
Our School Health and Safety Program has partnered with Spokane Public Schools to develop a series of school inspection training videos. The videos will be used to train our school partners to conduct self-inspections, as well as by other local health jurisdictions that are starting their own school inspection programs.
Our division has partnered with several building departments to enhance the commercial review process. We've implemented periodic interagency staff meetings and collaborated to develop staff reference tools. We've also created customer-friendly information and submittal forms. The result has been a streamlined process, improved agency coordination, and much better customer service.
The local source control program partners with the Spokane River Forum on EnviroStars. The mission of EnviroStars is to provide assistance and incentive for small businesses to reduce hazardous materials and waste to protect public health and the environment.
I think you can probably see why I'm so proud of my staff right now. Some of those staff are fairly new. Let's look at some examples of how we provide assurance now. Training is a big one. It's an important part of what we do, whether it is one-on-one or for groups. I started my working career as a school teacher, so I know how important knowledge is. This is some of the training that we routinely provide. We also do consulting. We serve as an information point for environmental public health. We are recognized for our knowledge, and we share not only with the facilities we permit, but with those such as other local health jurisdictions and, believe it or not, the State Department of Health. They come to us for information at times. We also provide information at the national level. When people think of environmental public health, they always think of inspections. I don't know why, because we only do a few. Come on, move. Last year, in 2014, we did just short of 4,000 inspections. Think about the number of staff we have. And that number of staff includes management, it includes clerical, so that's a lot of inspections for a few number of staff who are actually out there doing the actual inspections. Often comes up is, do we have to take enforcement action? It's our last-ditch effort. We do have to assure that we protect the public's health. There has always been confusion because the facilities that we inspect pay the fees, and they think that we are doing this for them. Well, that is a misconception. We are not doing it for them. We are doing it to protect the public's health. We do education in these facilities, and it's important that people know why we are doing enforcement, also why they have to do certain things certain ways. If people don't know what they have to do, they are not able to do it. And if people don't know why they have to do it, they're less likely to do it. So we try to teach them the what and the why to make sure that they know exactly what is going on. And again, our responsibility is to protect the public's health, and it's not to protect the health of the establishment that we may be inspecting or the facilities such as the solid waste incinerator, whatever. That's not our focus. So a little statistics on enforcement. I've included the re-inspections in there because I think you can see re-inspections are probably the first part of our enforcement procedure. However, permit suspensions is the point at which we actually take action. In 2014, in the water rec program, in case you couldn't figure that out, that's because the swimmer is on there. We had one permit suspension out of over 500 inspections. In food, almost 3,000 inspections and only 2 permit suspensions. Our purpose is not to suspend somebody's permit, it's to protect the public's health. The other way that we do enforcement is not directly concerning the establishment or the place that holds the permit, but it may be complaints that come in from the public. In the on-site sewage program, that's the outhouse, the on-site sewage program, most of what we do in enforcement is based on complaints that come in from the general public. And the same with solid waste. In fact, if you look at the number of permits that we have versus where we spend our time on complaints, you'll see that in solid waste it's much higher than the number of facilities that we have. Here's your chance. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for David?
I must have done a good job.
Great report. Thank you very much. Okay, Julie, You're next. Julie, last year, what did you speak on? Was that swimming pools? I kind of recall.
I think it was our interlocal agreement with Kalispell Tribe, probably.
Anyway, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, I'm Julie Aubry, and one of the programs that I manage is the Zoonotic Disease Program. And today I'm here to talk about our innovative educational campaign that we actually launched last year in May of 2014. But before I do that, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of the Zoonotic Disease Program because it may not be familiar to everyone. And I'll start with a couple of definitions. First, zoonotic disease is simply a disease that's carried by animals and then can be transmitted from animals to people. And sometimes we're called the vector program, and that also is correct, because a vector is a living thing that carries and transmits disease, and in our context it's an insect like ticks or mosquitoes. And it is our responsibility to work on prevention of both animal-carried and insect-carried diseases. There are many to choose from, and this slide just illustrates some of those diseases and the insects or animals that may transmit them. So what exactly do we do to prevent disease transmission? Well, I'll give you just a few examples. First, what we spend the bulk of our time doing is investigating reports of animal bites for the purpose of rabies prevention. And we investigate just roughly 700 bites per year. And while most of the bites come from dogs and cats, we do also investigate reports of bites from other animals like wild animals. Our concern is heightened, though, when we receive a report of a human contact or potential contact with a bat, because in Washington State, it's bats that are the carriers of rabies. We also work with pet shops and feed stores and petting zoos. And we consult with the owners and operators so that they understand and can comply with their responsibilities to protect their customers. For example, if I owned a pet store and I allowed you as a customer to come and handle the turtles and the puppies and the kittens and the lizards, then I would be responsible to post certain signage and also provide hand washing facilities for you. The last example of what our program does for protection is provide direct education to the public. And therein lies our challenge, because in public health, often prevention messages are pretty constant. They don't change, like wear insect repellent or put screens on your windows. And so how then do you take what's perceived by the public as an old message and keep them interested? How do you take that old message and make it seem new? And when I talk about the public, I also include the media, because in our program we rely quite heavily on the media to help us disseminate our message. So that is the challenge that we decided to take on in 2014. And in the past, this just represents what we used to do, and that was rely just heavily on media releases, real text-heavy messaging, and we knew we needed to change because we weren't keeping the same interest. So we called upon our communications team, specifically Amy, our graphics designer, and Kim, our public information officer, and we worked with them to help us develop an innovative new campaign. And the campaign's focus was to provide the public with pest prevention tips for their home and their yards. And it was unique because we shifted away from the text-heavy messaging, and instead we developed the messages based on easy to understand and eye-catching graphics that were real quick to look at. And this is our design concept, and this is the main page or landing page from our website. And so the design is this. Amy designed the bright graphic of the home and the yard. And by clicking on the pest of your choice, the mosquito or the tick or the mouse, you could then navigate to a page that was specific to that pest. And here are all 3 pages. And so when you get to the specific pages, you can see that it's the same picture, the same yard and the same house, but the prevention tips are specific and the yards look different. For example, and I know it's difficult to see, in the center page, there's a lawnmower, and it's for tick prevention, and it says keep your lawns mowed. So real quick to look at, very easy to understand. But if you want additional information, then we also updated our fact sheets and we rebranded them to match our campaign. So if you were on, say, the hantavirus page and it didn't make sense to you why you needed to keep your compost bin away from the house, you could then go to the fact sheet and you could learn that mice like to hang out in compost bins. So you could get the additional information that way. After our design, then, we needed to work on getting our message out. And so we also experimented beyond just the standard media releases. We did public service announcements and then utilized social media. And the media really responded very favorably. We were pleasantly surprised. We did interviews with all of the different TV stations, also radio. Our audio PSAs were picked up by the radio stations. And in particular, the spokesman took our graphic and they ran with it and they edited the graphic into one, put it on the front page of their features section with a very detailed article. We also got very positive feedback from our community partners, which doesn't happen all the time, but they recognized that it was a real different and visual approach that we were utilizing, and so we got good feedback there. We, of course, wanted to measure our success to see if this approach was good and whether it was worth repeating. And a couple of notes here. These are some of our numbers, but the 60,000 from the spokesman, that's just the number of print newspapers that were distributed. So we know we reached a number of people in addition, because you think of how many people per household, plus they have their website, plus they have their electronic edition. And the top 30% is the message that we got back from Twitter, because they don't really give numbers, but we heard back from them early on in our campaign that we were in the top 30% of campaigns that were targeting our demographic. So we felt pretty good about that. The last thing we wanted to measure was the number of people who actually came to our website looking for additional information. And we had a baseline for this. In 2013, we pulled the numbers of people who came to our page that just hosted our fact sheets at that time. And so from May to December of 2013, we had only 275 visitors that came to our site. We had set a lofty goal of 1,000. Seemed like a nice round number, but we weren't sure if we'd even come close. And our Bring It Summer Pest campaign in 2014 resulted in over a 600% increase to our website for folks coming for more information. So with all of that, we really feel that our campaign was successful and it was a good approach. And so we've decided to utilize that same approach again. And last week, the Water Recreation Program launched our Pool Safe campaign. And the focus on this campaign is drowning prevention and illness prevention directly from pools. We've already done some interviews. You should see us on TV next week. So we're hoping to have equal success. Any questions?
Any questions that you have? Very good program.
Thank you.
Hey, Kyle, please. Ooh, wait a minute, you not on here? Surprising. Well, I guess that, that's our agenda. I can't believe it's only 1:30. Mike, you can leave today without having to...
Feel guilty?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Well, I tell you what, Mr. Chair, I do have a question for the doctor, since we just got done taking a look at that presentation there. If you don't mind, sir.
That's fine.
All right. Last month's meeting, I brought up the fact that I had seen some headlines with regard to pneumonic and bubonic plague
rearing its ugly head there in Arizona and Colorado, and you acknowledged that and made the statement that you knew that that former plague was actually in Washington State now?
No, I did not say that.
Okay. Then could you clarify what it was that... Because I was of the understanding that maybe you had received a notification that it had hit Washington State's borders or something to that effect.
No, that's incorrect. What I said was that Washington State is one of the states that plague has been located. It's within the range of plague, certainly, but there's been no recent cases of plague in Washington State.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, our agenda says that our next health board meeting is July 30th, but we both have it on our calendars for July 23rd, and I know that all three commissioners are out the week of the 30th. So I'm looking for clarification. Right, but I thought when they called and did the schedules, checked with their schedules, we knew we were out for this week, or for the last week of the month. So I'm just curious.
What we'll have to do is, and you'll make a survey, and see which of the two, and see where we can go.
I'll just let you know all three commissioners are out the last week of July. We're not here, so.
Is there any vacation time?
We are, and we have to schedule our vacations in January to take them at the same time. So we're all out that week.
The date that you could make it would be on the 27th rather than...
23rd.
I mean, 23rd.
Yeah, I actually have it on my calendar on the 23rd.
Cool right now. Could everybody, who could make it on the 23rd?
I think.
Where are you, Doctor? Making it?
I don't know what's going on. It works.
It looks like we have a number of people that could be, so let's just plan on the 23rd. We'll get that. Does that take care of-
Hopefully that works for staff. Okay.
Board member check-in. Mike, you want to say anything else? Okay, Amber?
Keith? I did get a notice about the library bond coming out again, and when we talk about built communities or built structures, that sort of thing, education, literacy, seems like an important thing to me. I wish we had more library facilities in the valley, but it means we have to vote for this, I guess, in order to have more library space in the valley. Is this the only way we're going to get that as strict as possible?
Well, he's the one who's chairing that campaign, so you can direct your comments to Chuck.
I wondered, is it appropriate for me to talk about it? Because I certainly can. You know, on August the 4th, we are going to go ahead and have on August the 4th in the valley, there is a taxing district last year was proposed and passed that would include Central Valley, West Valley, East Valley, and some peripheral areas of the county. And that's a taxing district, and they're going to be going for a $20 million bond that will be voted on August the 4th. And last year it failed by about, we have to have a supermajority. So if we pass, about 58%. And so at this year, we're going simply for the bonds. It will restructure 4 different areas of our valley. It will take the Argonne Library, which is located north of Trent and Argonne, and it will refurbish that and expand it to more library services to take care of technology and so forth. We will then be building a brand new library down off of Sprague and Harold Road, which will be a 1-story building, and it will expand to conference rooms, auditorium, and provide all the technological aspects that we need not only for today, but for generations to come. Our library system in the valley is over 60 years old. And we have one elevator in the old library, you speak, that can take people up and down, and that's about it unless you want to go through a safety exit. So it's time for a renovation. We will at the same time take the old library and we'll put it into a tech resource center so that seniors and all kinds of youth can be able to utilize that during the summer if those facilities aren't available at the high schools. We will then building a brand new 20,000 foot on Conklin Park, which is just right off of Sprague and Sullivan, to, first of all, service the people that haven't had that kind of service in that portion of the valley for years. So yes, we are going to go full bore on this. I would request that any of you would like to endorse it. We're available to do that. We also want you to put up signs in your yards. We'd also like to provide a $1, $10, $50, or a $5,000 donation in order for us to complete this task. So thank you very much for the opportunity, Keith, so that I can speak for this. And it is going to pass.
Well, I just think literacy is one of our built environments that we know helps people out of poverty, and this just seems like one great way to do it.
Well, and I didn't realize it was proper to say it here, but thank you very much, Keith, for opening that door for me.
You're welcome.
Anybody else like to make a comment? John?
Just wanted to say I heard Dr. Joel being interviewed on the radio about the heat concerns for public health, and appreciate hearing that. I appreciate the health district pushing out that information pretty aggressively. It sounds like it's going to be a little bit of a hot weekend.
Okay. Ed, do you have something?
I saw part of the marijuana forum that John led, and so I appreciate your leadership on that.
Thanks.
Okay. Shelley? Susan? Okay. Do I hear adjournment?
Maybe one more thing.
Oh.
Just a quickie. I would like to say I've seen a lot of the stuff that Kim has done lately, and we saw a little bit here today and a couple other Family Nurse Partnership and some other areas she's working on. And boy, that work is just really good. So her department and her especially needs some recognition, I think.
Kim and Amy are doing a great job.
They are.
They're getting a ton of work, but they're having a blast. They love those kind of projects and really trying to emphasize those kind of campaign type style messaging because they seem to be working really well. I'll make sure to pass them along.
Yeah, please give them my compliments. Doing great work.
And one last item. At the executive board meeting, it was felt that we should have a tour of the remodel job that's going on. And so for any of the board members that would like to spend a few minutes, due to the fact that we are 1:35, we are way above schedule. And if you'd like to view and see what they're doing in the renovation of the health district, Ann, I think, are you going to lead it, Ann, or you're going to provide that?
I'm going to hand the board members who like to.
Okay, so if you'd like to attend that, after adjournment, be with Ann, and we'll go from there. And thank you, everyone. Good job.